Hi, Computer Science 2 class. It's Mrs. Miskin. I'm going to go over lesson 21 with you in code.org. This will be the last video that I do on the lessons. This one I will go through step by step, just like I did on 20. So if you have time and want to pay attention, you will be able to go through this and then get it exactly right. Okay, but it will take some time. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll walk through each step together. Okay, now hopefully you've been able to get through the rest of these lessons. We are starting a new unit next week. So please spend as much time as you can this week getting your code.org lessons finished up. We will be grading them and then we will move on. Okay, so lesson 21, the overview screen on 1, you will go through the same problem solving process. And I did send out the project guide for this. You should have gotten that in your email. If you don't have it, there is a copy here under resources, and you can go ahead and print that out. I will not require that you send it back in to me, but it would be helpful for you to fill that out as you go, if you would like to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to number 2. It gives you an example of what this platform game looks like and what it should do. Okay, so I'm going to hit run, and I'm moving with the left and the right arrow keys and up. And every time my little alien collects a star, my score goes up. Okay, the platforms are moving really slow. They can move faster. And you can always change the speed of your alien too. Okay, so I'm just hitting the up arrow. I just want to show you one other point of it here in a second. Oh, I'm missing a couple of stars. Okay, when the score gets to 25, the background changes. Right, we dealt with that just a little bit in the earlier lessons, but that will be one of the requirements for this one. I'll go ahead and reset. That's all that I need to show you on that preview. So that's part of the point, is that when it gets to a certain point, some kind of criteria has to be met. So think about how we would write that in our code. Okay, screen 3. Just again tells you that you're going to build a platform jumper game. Okay, number 4, let's look at what we're going to be doing in this one step. Okay, I'll go ahead and close this. Yes, it is part of a larger project, so our progress will save from screen to screen. First thing we need to do is create a background. The sample game had 2 different backgrounds, and you saw those, the blue, and then I think it kind of turned to an orangish color. And the first one has already been created for you in background 1, that function. So let's go ahead and take a look at the background 1 function. Here's our draw loop. And here's background 1, dark blue background. Here's yellow ellipses, random numbers, dark blue, okay? So you kind of get the idea. In order for the background function to do something, you have to call it inside the draw loop. Okay, we see that right here on line 7, background 1. Okay, there's also an empty function named background 2. We need to fill that function with new code to make a different background, then test the code by calling the function inside the draw loop. Okay, so do this, read the code for background 1, fill background 2 with new code for a second background, and then test. Here's a hint, it's much easier to copy, paste, and make small changes in text mode. That is true. Sometimes it's a little more difficult to get all of the blocks selected. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just go to function 1, background 1, and copy. I'll hit show text. And I'm just going to copy, Control C to copy, and then inside of background 2, Control V to paste. Okay, now I'm going to go back to show blocks. And you can see all of those blocks are in background 2. Now let's go ahead and change Let's change it to maybe a green background, and you can change them to whatever colors you want. I'm going to keep it really simple for right now. Let's do, okay. Okay, so now I've added code into the function background too, changed a couple of things, so you should be able to see two different backgrounds, and I'm going to test it by calling it inside the draw loop. So now inside my draw loop, I'm going to go to functions and drag in the my function and call it background 2. Okay, now because we know that our code will run in the order that it is written, background 2 will overwrite background 1 when I hit run. So let's just look at that. Okay, so you see the green background with 2 different ellipses up here in the corner. And that's my background 2. It was green. I had one that was filled with blue and one that was filled with dark blue. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and change that one to yellow. And this one, we'll change that one to red, just to give it a little bit of a different color. Okay, so yellow and red. And you can change them to whatever color you would like. You can also add anything in that you want to. These just have 2 random ellipses, which you may or may not want, but you can decide. You can change it up however you would like. Okay, so that is it for number 4. Let's go ahead and hit finish. And go on to number 5. Now that we've created the backgrounds, you need to choose when each background is drawn. For that, you'll need a score variable to hold information about your player's score. Okay, so we always give our variables a starting value at the very beginning. We know that above our draw loop, right? Create a score variable at the beginning. Show me the block. You can point that out. It's in variables, and it's the first one where we declare it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and drag that in and see this comment here on line 1 that says variables. Let's call it score, and we set it to equal 0. Okay, that's it for step 5. That's pretty simple, isn't it? We're just going to hit run. Nothing happens because we haven't called it inside of our draw loop in any way. That's okay, we'll get to it. Let's finish that, go on to number 6. Okay, now that we have our score variable, you can use it to choose the right background for your game. You can see an example of changing your background according to your score in Lesson 19 at Level 12. This is a hyperlink. If you click on it, it will open up that screen in another tab, and you'll be able to see, I'm just going to click on it, sorry, same tab, another tab. You'll be able to see what you did. That's the bunny and the coin when the background changed, okay? Just going to go back to this one now. That will just give you a refresher. So if you've already done 19, that gives you an example of how it's done. Inside the draw loop, use an if statement and your 2 background functions to draw your background according to your score level. Okay, so inside of our background, we're going to keep this pretty simple, even though there are some challenges on here. Okay, use an if statement, grab our if. All right, inside the draw loop, use an if statement to draw your background according to your score level. Okay, so let's see, how do we want to write this? We're going to use a Boolean expression. So in math, what are we comparing to? We want, let's see, I'm going to grab this greater than or equal to and pull that in here. And we're using our score variable. So if our score is greater than or equal to 25, we want it to be background 2. Now, there's a few different ways that you can do this. I'm going to keep it really simple. The challenge is to add a third background. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and do that, that's fine. I'm going to keep it simple here and just add a plus for else. So if it's not greater than or equal to 25, I want it to show background 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit run. And there is that first background. I'll go ahead and reset it. Looks like my background one has changed just a little bit. That's okay. Now, I'm going to test the code by changing the start score to 100. So that means change the variable up here. We've got score equal to 0. So when it's 0, it's going to show background 1. If I change this to a number above 25, so let's say 30, let's see if it gives me the background, the second background. Okay, it does. There's the green background with the red and yellow ellipses instead of the other one. Okay, so my if statement is working. I'm gonna go ahead and change my variable back to 0. Okay, so that's it for number 6. You guys love that sound, don't you? Okay, number 7. Make the scoreboard. We need to have a scoreboard so the player can keep track of the score. There is already a show score function. Okay, let's look at that really quick. It only shows the text score and not the actual score. Show me where. Down here at the bottom, line 39 says function show score. So we've got our fill white. So text size 20, so that means our text will be white and size 20. It's going to show the word text, or sorry, show the word score in this text block. Okay, you can see a working scoreboard in lesson 16, level 9. Okay. Read the code in the show score function. Call the function inside the draw loop right after you draw the backgrounds. Okay, use the text block to display the score at the top of the screen. Okay, so we're going to first call the function inside the draw loop. Okay, so we need to go back to functions. And let's see, what is this called? It's called show score with a capital S on score. Show score. Okay, so let's hit run. Okay, there, my score is written up here at the top. Okay, oh, and it didn't change my score variable, so I'm just going to move that back to 0. Okay, so now here's the moon, here's background 1, there's score. Now we need to show the score variable. Remember how we did that? Let's go back down here. And this text just shows the word score because it's in quotation marks. Now, if you will remember how we add the variable, you need to have it outside of the quotation marks. There's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can add in drawing. You can add another text block. See if I can find it here. And then I can just delete that out and delete the quotations and write my variable score. Okay, but what happens when I do that is that it writes it clear up here in the corner. So I need to just check my, not dimensions, but where my coordinates are. Okay, so the X is 10 and the Y is 10 also. So I'm gonna put 10 right here, but I don't want it to appear on top of the word score. So let's do 30 and see where that appears. Okay, not quite in the right spot, is it? Okay. Okay, I got those backwards actually. So this one, let's reset. Okay, hang on. Let's pull that back in here, okay? See, sometimes even Mrs. Miskin has issues with code.org, okay? All right, score our X1 needs to be further over, but then our Y needs to be the same. Now let's see if that works. Not quite, we're getting closer. Okay, so let's do show grid. And even on this dark background, let's kind of see, we want our X to maybe be quite a bit further. Okay, so let's change that to hit reset. Let's try 100. And let's put 20 as our Y. Okay, so we're getting closer. All right, I'm just gonna make one other quick change, and then if you'd like to play around with that, you can. I won't waste all of your time here. Okay, close enough. We see a 0, that's okay. You can move it wherever you need to. You might want it to be a little bit closer. You might want it to be further away. Now, I did say there was a couple of different ways that you could add the score. So play around with this block right here. I'm not going to give you the answer on it, but play around with it. See if you can figure out a way to add it in this one too. Okay, that'll be your challenge. All right, so that's all for number 7. We've got the text block to display the score at the top of the screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and mark finished. And go on to number 8. Create a platform sprite. Now that we have the background and the variable for score, let's create our sprite. Okay, the sample game had 2 platform sprites. So we'll start with one, test it, and then copy and paste to make a second. That's smart. Instead of copying and pasting them to create both of them first, test it. Okay, look at your worksheet. So that's that project guide that you could have printed out. Choose a platform sprite to create. In the Create Sprites area, create your new sprite. Okay, so right here on line 4, the comment says Create Sprites. Okay, so we're going to create a sprite. And we'll call it Platform 1. Okay, and then we're going to use Set Animation for Platform 1. And let's see what animations we have. Alien, platform, and star. So they already loaded. I'm just going to choose platform. Okay, and then use velocity Y to give our sprite downward velocity. Velocity Y. Okay, again, platform 1. And let's see, let's give it a velocity of 2. We'll test it and see what that does. Okay, all right, so it starts in the middle of the screen. I'm not sure if I like that, and it disappears. Okay, we're gonna fix that next in the next screen. Okay, so let's change our position here. Reset, and let's see, what do we want our X position to be? We want it up here, right? X can probably stay 200. Maybe we actually want to move it over just a little bit to the side. So let's say 300 here. Again, you guys can change it to whatever you would like it to be. You don't have to have it exactly the way that I have it, but experiment. Okay, and 0 because I want it to be at the very top. So let's try this again. Okay, now it's coming down right from the top and it's over on the right side of the screen. So adjust your X and Y if you need to. Adjust your velocity if you need to. And then we're going to copy and create a platform 2. So remember, our copying function is easier if we do the show text. So I'm just going to do that and then select these 3 lines. Control C, Control V to paste, and then change it to platform 2. Okay, now I probably don't want it to appear at the exact same position, so I'm going to change this one to 100. And then let's see what that looks like. Okay, now I have 2 platforms coming down at the exact same time in different positions. Okay, that's all right. Okay. So we'll go ahead and finish. Okay, and continue on to number 9. Okay, it doesn't loop back to the top, does it? So we want a function block to loop the platforms down below. So down here, we'll go under our show score. And let's create one called loop. Okay, use the if block inside the function to check whether the platform has gone off the bottom of the screen, and if so, move it back to the top. Okay, so let's grab an if. All right, and how do we check if it's gone off of the screen? We're going to check a position here, aren't we? But let's use a math block. So on our grid, it's coming down from the top. So it's starting up here at 0y, going down to about 400y on the y axis. So let's do the greater than. If our platform, we'll start with platform 1, right? If platform 1y is greater than 400, then what do we want to do? We want to move that back up to the top. Okay, let's see if this is all the code that we need. We'll test it. Let's go back up to draw sprites, call our function. And that was loop platforms. We're just going to start with 1 and see if it works. Okay, so I've got both of them coming down. Let's look and see if platform 1 loops. Okay. All right. So we've called the function, run the code to test. Okay. Now we probably need to do that same thing for platform 2. But I'm going to go out on ahead just really quick and see if we need to do that yet or if there's more that we need to be doing, because this is just telling us to do it for 1. I can always come back to it. Okay, make a second platform. We can copy and paste the code. Okay, we've done that. Copy 2 parts of your code, the part at the beginning. So I jumped ahead a little bit on that one, sorry. And then the part in loop platforms. All right, so we've got the platform 2, change the starting position. We did that. Inside your loop platforms function, copy the if statement, then paste it underneath and change it so that it's platform 2. Okay, and then run it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We did already this step up here where we created this right and then copied and pasted it. But we're going to go back to show text. and scroll down to our loop platforms function and just copy this if. Paste it, and then let's change it to platform 2. Okay, and show blocks. Okay, so let's just run down this list just to make sure. Copy the code we used to create this sprite, create set animation, velocity Y, paste it directly beneath the original code. So we did that here. Change the names of the sprite in the new lines, platform 1, platform 2. Okay, we did that. Change the starting position. We did that so that it would start on the left side. Inside the loop platforms function, copy the if statement, change the sprite name in that second one, and then run. Okay, so we've done all of those things. Let's check it. Okay, so now I've got 2 platforms coming down. Let's see if they both loop. Okay, good. All right, hopefully you're following along and you're having some success here. Okay, challenge, you can make your platforms appear at random X positions when they loop back to the top of the screen. Okay, you could do that. Let's go ahead and finish 10. Now, some of those challenges you are welcome to do on your own. You can pause the video and work on those and then continue on. That's totally okay. All right, we need to add the items that fall from the top of the screen. These move just like the platforms, but faster. Okay, the items start at a random location. The item's X position is this random number, Y position is this random number. Okay, so it's giving us some of the information for creating. Use a create sprite block to make an item sprite. Okay, let's do that first. So here's our create sprite section. We'll just put it after the platform. And we're supposed to call this one item. Okay, use random numbers to start it at a random X and random Y. Okay, I think we'll just copy and paste those both in here. Okay, so X, let's look back up here in our instructions. The random number between 50 and 350 for X. Okay, so 50 and 350 for X. The Y position is a random number between -30 and -60. Okay. Okay, all right, so let's look at our instructions now. Use the create sprite, we've got that. Use random number inside to start at random X and Y positions. Now we need set animation and velocity Y. Okay, so let's grab our in sprites, set animation, and this is our item. And we want this animation to be the star. You can create or add your own if you'd like to. I'm just going to use the defaults from this program. Okay, and then make it fall from the top of the screen. So velocity Y. For item. Now the platforms are falling at 2. Why don't we have this one fall at 4? And you can adjust this number if you need to. Let's go ahead and run to test. Okay, there's our star right there. It's falling much faster. Okay, it's not looping, so we'll probably have to do that in the next step, don't we? Okay, but that's all for number 11. Go ahead and finish. Okay, now that your item is falling, you can add code to loop it back to the top. Okay, similar to what we did for the platform, but it uses a random number when it goes to the top of the screen. That's okay. Create a loop items function. So let's create a loop items function. So we'll scroll all the way down to the bottom. And this is loop items. Okay, use an if block to check whether the item sprite is off the bottom of the screen. Okay, that's going to look really similar to our platform function here where we checked that. Let's go grab an if. Okay, and we used a math block to check if, let's just look up at our platform, our loop platforms. If platform 1 y is greater than 400, then we're going to do something. Okay, so now we have an item. And we also want to check its y. So item, that one is greater than 400. And what do we want to do? We want it to come back up, but we want a random x and y position. So let's do, we need both of them, x and y. Item. And then we need random numbers. So we'll go into math, grab our random numbers. Okay, and which ones did we do? Let's go back up to see what we put in there earlier. So our x is between 50 and 350. So let's pull that in here again. You are welcome to adjust it. Okay, and then item y, let's look at that one. -30 and -60. So -30 and -60. Okay, call the function inside the draw loop. So we need to call loop items. We'll just call that under loop platforms. Okay. So let's run. Here's our item, our star coming down, and it loops. Okay, so our platforms are looping, and there's our star. Excellent. Okay, number 12 finished. Make your second item, copy and paste the code, and copy 2 parts, the beginning where you create it and the part in loop item. Okay, so we just did this with the platform. This should be super easy. So let's go into text mode. Here's our item. I'm actually just going to add a little bit of space from the platform variable. So here's our item. And we'll call this one item 2. Okay. And then scroll all the way down to your loop items and copy that if statement. And then we want this one to also be item 2. So I'm adding 2 and 2. Okay. Go back to show blocks. Okay, so we copied the code, change the name of the sprite inside your loop items, copy that. Okay, run your code. Okay, I only have one item coming up. What have I done wrong? Let's look through my code and see. Do I have any errors? Okay, so here's my variable item, set animation and velocity. Okay, set to a star. Let's see. Oh, I just found it. Did anybody else see it? I've got my variable set to item 2, but here I didn't change it to 2 also. Okay. Easy mistake to make, right? Even Mrs. Miskin can make them. Okay, let's try that again. Run. I now have 2 stars falling down. And are they looping? Yes, they are. Okay, that's great. Let's go ahead and finish this level. Okay, level 14. Now we create our player sprite. Just like the item sprites, the player sprite will fall from the top of the screen. Unlike the items, your player sprite will get faster as it falls. Gravity, just like real falling objects. Okay, this is what allows it to jump up and fall back down. Okay, so now we need to create our player sprite. So let's start right here. Here's our score. Here's our platform. Item 1 and 2. Let's grab another variable, and I'm just going to call mine player. You can call it whatever you like. All right, and we want it to, let's see, this says with the label and starting position that you put on your worksheet. So this is something you can choose. All right, I probably don't want it to appear in the middle of the screen. So let's pick maybe a position up here. Okay, or maybe right here. Okay, I'm going to do 280. Okay, now I need a set animation. And I will make sure to call this one clear. And I'm going to change it to that alien. And then we need a starting velocity, don't we? Oh, but we're going to use a function to do that. Okay, I'll read the instructions. Create a player fall function that makes the sprite fall from the top of the screen. Okay, the code inside the function should use velocity y. Okay, so there's our velocity in a counter pattern, just as when you made the falling rock. Okay. All right, so let's go down. We'll create a new function. And this we're going to call player fall. And we want to give it velocity y in a counter pattern. So we'll grab a math block for that counter pattern. Whoops, I didn't do that quite in the right spot. Okay. All right, hang on. Okay, it's trying to grab, oh, I've got a little space right here. You see that? It's throwing an error for me, so I'm just going to go to show text. And we will get rid of that. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, it's in my loop items before if item 2. Okay, all right, now that's gone. Now I should be able to add my plus in here. No, it's still focusing on item 2. Okay, let's see if there's anything wrong with that one. Okay, I did notice something up here. I set my player to the platform, not the alien. So I'm just going to switch that really quick. Run. Okay, now I have my player up here. That's where it's supposed to be, right? Okay, now let's see if it'll let me add the math block down here. If it doesn't, we'll try something else here. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that function then, and I'll add it back in. Sometimes code.org doesn't work exactly the way that we want it to. So this is called player fall. And now let's see if it'll let me drag that math block in. Nope. Okay, so we're just going to go to show text. And we're going to say this is player fall, player dot velocity x, or y. We want velocity y, so I can select it from that list that comes up. Okay, and we want it to be equal to, you're going to use the counter pattern, player dot velocity x, velocity y less 1. Okay, and then semicolon. All right, so if you ever have issues with code.org not letting you drag blocks in, go ahead and type it in. It may be a little bit more tedious, but now when I go to the show blocks, that should show up exactly right. Okay, let's see if it works. I do need to call it. That was our last instruction. Call the player fall function inside the draw loop. And let's see if I put it going in the right direction too. Okay, whoops. Reset. Okay, so it's starting here and falling really fast. Okay, so maybe I want to slow that down a little bit. So I'm going to change that to, let's see, 0.5. Okay, let's see if that's a little bit better. That's better. I'm going to slow that down even more. Okay, that's about where I want it to be. Now, you can put it at whatever speed you would like to. That's where I'm going to leave mine for right now. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and finish on that one. Number 15, add controls so that you can move your player around. Your player needs to move to the left when the left arrow is pressed, to the right when the right arrow is pressed, and jump when the space bar is pressed. Okay, so 3 different keyboard controls. Create a new control player function in the functions area of your code. So let's start with that one. Go down all the way to the bottom, add a new function. And this one needs to be called control player. Okay, so that's instruction 1. Inside control player, use the if, key down, and sprite.x blocks to make your player move to the left and right. Okay, so let's just start with that. Use an if. And key down. Okay, and then sprite X. So let's just grab all those blocks first. Okay, so we don't want it on up. Let's go through and change now. If our key down is left, let's start with that one. Then we want our sprite's name is player. Our player.x to do what? We want it to move. So you might have to go back to some examples. Here's an example, lesson 12, puzzle 7. I'm going to open this in a new tab so you can just look it over. If you right click and then go to open link in new tab, it'll open in a new tab. Okay. So that's how you can open it up to look at it and then keep your player open. Okay, so just moving left and right. Do we use velocity? Do we use what? We're going to use a counter pattern. What do you think? Let's use a counter pattern because we want it to move. If we just set the X to something, then it's just going to stay still, right? We know the counter pattern is what helps us move. So we want to drag in a math block. And let's see, we'll test it out to see if we want to use plus or minus. Okay, and then we want X. We'll do one at a time. Player.x equals player.x plus 1, 2, 3. You decide. Let's go with 2. Okay, so function control player. We're just going to start with this one and test it. So I'm going to add in the control player into our draw loop. Okay, so left key. Let's see if it moves to the left. Oh, mine moves to the right. Okay. If you saw that really quick. So I need to change this to be minus. Okay. Let's test it again. Okay, now when I hit left, it's moving. It's still moving pretty fast. We'll adjust it as we go. Okay, so that's left arrow. Now we need to add for the right arrow. So let's just repeat that same thing. And I'm going to select and copy. Remember, we can copy and paste with the blocks or in the text. Okay, so this one is going to be key down right. And now remember what we had to change here. We already know which direction the right one moves, so we will change that one to plus. Okay, and this one didn't stand right, so I'm just going to go back to right. Okay, so if key down left, player X equals player X minus 2. If key down is right, player X equals player X plus 2. Okay, does that look right? We can adjust it if we need to, if we want it to go more or less, but let's just make sure that it will go back and forth the way we want it to. Okay, that was pretty fast. All right, let's see. I'm going to change that to 3 and 3 and see if that, oh, now you can see it a little bit more obviously. Okay. And maybe I'm moving a little bit too fast still. Let's do 0.1 and see if I can show you. Okay, that's a little bit better. It's moving a little slower. You adjust it. You can put whatever number you want in there. Okay. All right. So now we have to do the up arrow. Okay, so on this instruction here, use the if key down and velocity Y to make your player jump when the arrow is pressed. Okay, so we're going to need another if. We're going to need another key down. And then this one, velocity Y. Okay, so we've got key down is up. That's right. Do we use the counter pattern on this one or not? Okay, so our sprite is player. And then let's see, we want it to jump up. So is it going to be positive or negative? Let's try a positive 3. Okay, so when I hit space, it is not going up. Let's try negative. All right, let's get one more try. Okay, I just found my mistake. You guys have probably already caught it. I used key down up, not the space. Okay, did it say, yep, and jump when the space bar is pressed? Okay, so I just used up because right here it says up arrow is pressed. There's actually conflicting information in here. Look at that. Make your player jump when the up arrow is pressed, jump when the space bar is pressed. So use either one. Mine uses the up and it is going up. Okay, so let's hit run. I'm going to hit the up and it does move up. Okay. All right, let's just make sure that we've got all of these. We have a control player. We've got the if and sprite X for left and right, and then jump up. We've called it inside the draw loop and we've tested it, haven't we? Because it is right here, control player. Okay, let's go on to 16. Okay, our player needs to land on the platform and interact with the other sprites. Okay, so first of all, create a player lands function. So let's go to that, scroll all the way to the bottom again. You want to create a new function called player lands. Add it to the functions area. Inside the function, use the collide block so that your player can land on both the platforms. Okay, so let's find that collide. And we have two platforms. So let's grab two of those. And let's change our sprite names to player. Okay. And then our target. Our target, what did we call them? Let's go back up and check. I have platform 2 and platform 1. So whatever you've called those two, use those in your target. Platform 1 and platform 2. Okay, call the function inside the draw loop, run the code. Seems simple, right? Okay, so up here, let's grab that function also. And we call it player lands. Okay, let's give it a try. Oh, see what I've done? I've put my platforms too close together and my player can't get up there. Okay, so let me make an adjustment here to my positions of my platforms. So what if I put, let's see, I'm gonna start this one at 50 and this one at 250. Let's see if that works so that they're offset from each other. Okay, now can I move? Oh, and now I can rest on that platform. Let's check and see if I can get to the other one. Okay. All right. So I can get up and I can rest on that platform, can't I? Okay. All right, so my player lands function is working. That's all we need to do here for 16. Let's go on to 17. We're getting so close. I know you have been so patient. This is taking a long time, but I'm talking a lot too. I'm sure you're doing it much faster than me. Okay, you'll want your player to collect the items falling from the top of the screen, right? Or item 1 and item 2. create a collect items function. So let's go ahead and do that. At the very bottom, let's go all the way to the end, functions, create function, collect items, add it to the functions area of your code. Use the if and is touching to change the X and Y position of the items when the player touches them. You can look at the loop item function for clues and how to reset the item position. Okay, and then inside your if statement, add a counter pattern that increases the score. All right, so use an if. So we need an if. And is touching. Okay, that's going to go right in here because we have to determine if they're touching, right? So in sprites, let's find is touching. And our sprite is player if it's touching. And then you need to get your variable names for those. I called them item and item 2. Okay, so if player is touching item, what do I want it to do? Change the X and Y position of the items. Okay, so we want to look at loop item for clues, how to reset the item position. Okay, or think that one through. What are we going to put in here? If we collect the items, what do we want it to do? We want it to reset. So we want to just put these right in here, okay? So those same criteria. So it meets this criteria and then it meets these. So easy way to do this. Let's go ahead and we'll just copy and paste them. Okay. And that's for item. So if player is touching item, it will reset. Okay, now we know that we're going to duplicate this, but we have one other block to add for the score. Okay, so let's just check. If the player is touching the item, item 1 will, or item X and Y positions will change. And the second part, add a counter pattern to increase the score each time the player touches an item. So we need to go back to our variables to change the score. Okay. Oops, I need the other block. Okay, so we want score to equal, using the counter pattern, go into math, grab a plus, score plus 1. Okay, call the function inside of our draw loop. Okay, so let's call this collect items up here in the draw loop. It's getting quite long, isn't it? Collect items. Okay, let's see what happens. Getting so close here. Okay, so I'm moving. And let's see. Okay, I am not in the right position to get these stars, am I? Okay, there we go. That's why you guys are, oh, it's not working, is it? Because when I touch, it's not, oh, there we go, right there. Okay, do you know what I'm missing right here? Okay, that was item, just the item, but I have 2, don't I? Okay, let's go ahead and finish this one and see if in the next step we're going to duplicate it. No, let's go back to 17 then. And we'll duplicate it in here. So collect both of them. So we'll go up, we'll scroll down here to the very bottom, and we're going to copy this whole if. We'll do it in text just to be sure. Okay. So copy the whole if, paste it, and we want this one to be item 2. Okay, item 2 and item 2. Looks like I've got an extra space here. I'm just going to get rid of that really quick. Okay, so we've got item 2, item 2, item 2. Let's give it a try. Okay, now it's collecting both of the items. I can rest on the platform if I want to. My score is increasing. I have to get to 25, don't I, for the background to change. So let's give that a try. And I might want to change my speed. So there's lots of adjustments that can be made to the background, to the sprites, to the score. Maybe you want to play a sound. You can do all kinds of things on this one. So let's see how creative you can get with it. Okay, oh, and there my background changed. Okay. All right, class, you have been sitting with me for a long time going through this. Let's just finish off the last couple of screens to give you some other ideas. You go ahead and hit finish on this one. We'll go on. Lesson 18 gives you some more ideas. This is a plane jumper. So you'll just run it and play it and see what it's doing. And then here's some of the things that you could add. Choosing new animations. Make it impossible for your player to go off the left or the right of the screen. Okay, we've done that in a previous lesson, so you can look back. Add a different type of item for the player to collect or to avoid. So maybe you have one that the score will go down. Okay, you can add another variable that keeps track of how many lives and end the game if the player runs out. So all sorts of different levels of difficulty here. So that's screen 18, plane jumper. Screen 19 is bunny jumper. Okay, here's some other things that you can look at adding into your game. And then on 20, it will go back to your code where you will choose some of those different challenges. Okay, and I'm not going to go through that part with you. You have stuck with me long enough already. Go ahead and look through some of these options and choose the ones that you think are the most fun and go ahead and add them in. Okay, class, I am going to stop sharing my screen now. You guys have been so patient and stuck with me this whole time. Thank you so much. This was lesson 21. Lesson 22 is your own game. So now after going through the Cake Defender and this platform game, choose something on your own that you'll do for lesson 22. You'll follow the same process, just do one step at a time. Create your sprites, then give them movement, put your functions in, do your backgrounds, okay? Add one little level at a time. It'll be much easier that way. All right, thank you. I look forward to seeing your finished product.